Hi everyone, this is Olga. No one's done this before. Let's check whether it's possible to make a really delicious, literally dirt cheap chocolate cake in a frying pan. For the batter, we'll only need 2 eggs and a cup of boiling water, and the cake turns out beyond all praise. Save this recipe. Every home cook will find it useful. There won't be a link to a source since we're testing the idea itself. You'll find all the exact proportions in the description under the video. To start, crack 2 medium or large eggs into a bowl. The eggs can be cold or at room temperature. It doesn't matter here. Add 160 grams of sugar, that's 8 level tablespoons. For balance, add a pinch of salt. And for a pleasant aroma, a pinch of vanillin or 1 to 2 teaspoons of vanilla sugar. At this stage, instead of vanillin, you can also add 1 teaspoon of instant coffee. It only enhances the chocolate flavor. Whisk everything together for about 30 seconds just to break up the eggs and combine. Next, add 90 grams of neutral vegetable oil, about 6 to 7 tablespoons or 9 tablespoons if using smaller 10 gram spoons. Then sift in 1 cup 250 milliliters of flour heaped, about 180 grams by weight. Also, sift in 30 grams of cocoa powder, 3 level tablespoons, and 10 grams of baking powder. There's a generous amount of baking powder, so the batter rises well. If you like, 1 teaspoon of baking powder can be replaced with a slightly less than full teaspoon of baking soda. Mix the batter with a whisk. At this stage, it's thick and a bit awkward to stir. Essentially, a dense chocolate mass. Pour in 165 milliliters of boiling water, that's 2/3 of a cup, 250 milliliters, or 11 tablespoons. You can use freshly boiled water or very hot water, whichever works for you. Mix with the whisk until the batter is smooth, even, and lump-free. The batter should end up medium in consistency. I recommend adding the flour in parts so as not to overload the batter, since ingredients vary. At the end, I added 1 more tablespoon of flour, as the batter was a bit too thin. Here's what the consistency should look like. It should fall from the spatula in a ribbon, medium thick. In total, I used 200 grams of flour. Go by the consistency of your batter rather than the exact amount. We'll bake the batter in a frying pan 22 or 24 centimeters in diameter. Mine is 22 centimeters. To prevent sticking, grease the pan with a little vegetable oil. Then line the bottom with a circle of parchment paper and grease it lightly as well. Pour the batter into the pan and smooth it out. Bake the cake in the pan on an electric stove over low heat. Because of the large surface area, it bakes evenly. Alternatively, you can bake it on a gas stove over the lowest possible heat, so nothing burns. To clarify, on a gas stove, use the minimum heat setting. It helps to use a heat diffuser. Place it on the burner and set the heat slightly above the lowest setting. The cake bakes evenly on the diffuser too. Cover the pan with a lid and let the cake bake. As you can imagine, with the amount of desserts I'm constantly making, I really need to keep the rest of my diet balanced to stay in shape. I used to track everything I ate down to the gram and weigh all my food. Honestly, it was a total nightmare. That kind of routine burns you out fast, which is why so many people give up on calorie counting after just a few days. But Cal AI made everything so much easier. Now, counting calories is as simple as taking a quick photo on your phone. Just snap a picture of your plate and the app instantly recognizes the meal, breaking it down into calories, protein, fats, and carbs. The photo recognition is super accurate, but you can also easily adjust your meals manually. For my dessert, I'm adding peaches, which I can log in seconds thanks to the app's massive food database. You can select the size, weight, and number of servings. My absolute favorite feature is the barcode scanner. It makes adding everyday items to your log effortless. Plus, the calorie tracker updates in real time. Click the first link in the description or in the pinned comment to download CalAI. Make sure to use my promo code OliCook to get 3 days of free access, or simply scan the QR code on the screen. Now let's get back to our recipe. During baking, condensation will collect on the lid. Wipe it off with a paper towel or kitchen towel so nothing drips onto the cake. After 50 minutes of baking on the diffuser, here's what the cake looks like. The batter has risen well, the edges are matte and fairly firm while the center is still liquid. Run a spatula around the edges of the pan and check underneath. If the bottom has set, you can flip the cake. To do this, place a piece of parchment on top of the cake and flip it over. Remove the pan and parchment, and you'll see the cake has baked nicely with nothing burnt. Return the cake along with the parchment to the pan, cover with the lid, wiped dry beforehand, and continue baking for another 10 to 15 minutes until a toothpick comes out clean. On a gas stove without a diffuser, it usually takes a bit less time, 35 to 40 minutes of baking, then again 10 to 15 minutes more. On an electric stove, the time will be similar, but again it's approximate. Go by your own situation. The result is a fluffy, beautiful cake, 22 centimeters in diameter and weighing 700 grams. You can top it with chocolate glaze, melted chocolate, spread it with jam, or simply dust it with powdered sugar. Any way you do it, it'll be delicious. This cake can also be cut into 2 or 3 layers and filled with cream, turning it into a tasty homemade layer cake. I made everything as simply as possible on a minimal budget. The batter baked through well. The crumb is tender, soft, moist, almost as if soaked, and it practically melts in your mouth. The cake is medium in sweetness with a rich chocolate flavor. The result is a very tasty, inexpensive, and easy to make chocolate cake. This batter contains no dairy. Only 2 eggs were needed. Mixing the batter takes no more than 5 minutes. I cut the cake into portions right away and decorate it with raspberries so everyone can grab their own piece. For comparison, let's also bake this cake in the oven. For that, I prepared a second batch of batter. It's very simple and inexpensive to make. This time, we'll bake it in a loaf pan, measuring 24 by 11 centimeters. You could also bake this as a sponge cake in a springform pan, 20 to 22 centimeters in diameter, and cut it into layers later. I lined the pan with parchment and poured in the batter. On top, if you like, sprinkle the batter with berries, fruit, nuts, chocolate chips, whatever you want. We bake the cake or loaf in a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius for 40 minutes without foil. Then I covered it with foil for another 20 minutes and continued baking until a toothpick came out clean. The time varies depending on your oven's heating characteristics, the material of the pan, and the thickness of the batter. In my case, I used a glass pan with a thick layer of batter, so the cake baked for a full hour. Here's the appetizing little loaf cake that resulted. Take it out of the pan and remove the parchment. Lightly dust the top with powdered sugar or drizzle with melted chocolate, then slice it. The crumb is similarly moist, fluffy, soft, and tender, with a crispy top crust and a very delicate interior. For comparison, I'll show that the crumb from the pan-baked version and the oven-baked version are quite similar. The only difference, the pan version comes out fully soft and slightly more moist, while the oven version is a bit drier, with a crispy top crust. In the end, you get a very tasty, dirt cheap homemade chocolate cake. You can serve it as a single cake, a loaf, or bake it as sponge cake layers. Importantly, it requires minimal ingredients, and the batter takes only about 5 minutes of active preparation. It turns out delicious, both in a frying pan and in the oven. So I can confidently say this recipe works. If you liked it, give it a try. Thank you to everyone who watched this video to the end. As always, please support my video with a like and subscribe. I'm looking forward to your feedback in the comments. I wish everyone peaceful skies. Until next time, my dears. Bye.